Today you'll witness 4 caving expeditions that began with confidence and ended in that same haunting silence. Warning, disturbing content ahead. On July 15th, 2006, the Chassahowitzka River in Florida lay still and quiet. 4 friends, Jason Boyette, Tyler, Mark, and Shane, pulled up just before midnight. They weren't professionals, just young, fearless, and itching for a thrill. Jason, 22, was the wild one, always chasing limits. Tyler was his best friend, steady, loyal, and a little more cautious. Mark and Shane followed their lead, the kind of guys who never backed down from a dare. Their plan? A night dive. No wetsuits, no tanks. Just snorkels, fins, and one dim flashlight. They'd heard whispers about underwater caves hidden beneath the river's surface. Mysterious, untouched, dangerous. That only made it more tempting. The first 3 dives were quick. Down through a narrow crevice, a few kicks forward, then back to the surface, laughing, adrenaline pumping. Then it was Jason's turn. He grinned, took the flashlight, and vanished beneath the water. 1 minute passed, then 2. They watched the glow of the light below, waiting for it to rise. But it didn't. At first, they joked. "He's just showing off," Mark said. "Probably went deeper." But then the light flickered. Once, twice, then jerked erratically like something was wrong. Without hesitation, Tyler dove in after him. He forced his way through the tight opening, heart pounding. The walls pressed in. The deeper he went, the more the darkness swallowed him. And then he saw the beam shaking wildly. And Jason! He was wedged in the rock and twisted into a space barely wide enough for a body. His arms flailed, chest heaving. His eyes locked onto Tyler's, wide with panic. He wasn't moving forward or backward. He was trapped. Tyler surged forward but hit a solid stone. He couldn't reach him. Couldn't help. The limestone clawed at him as his lungs screamed for air. 1 more second, and he'd be stuck too. He had no choice. He backed out. Barely. Breaking the surface, Tyler gasped, eyes wide. "He's stuck. He can't move." Panic gripped them. All 3 dove again and again, trying to help and trying to change the outcome. But the cave was a death trap. Narrow, cold, unforgiving. And then the light below went out. They called for help. Rescue divers arrived hours later, but the cave was too dangerous to enter at night. They waited for first light. At dawn, trained divers went in with full gear and grim faces. They knew what they were looking for. At 9 a.m., they reached him. Jason was gone, still trapped, still twisted in the stone's grip. The river gave him up, but not without a price. His death shattered the group. None of them were ever the same. What started as a spontaneous dive into the unknown ended with a lesson they'd carry forever. Caves don't care if you're ready. They don't care how young or bold you are. And the river never forgets. Jason's dive ended in silence. However, in Virginia, 4 men entered a cave, only to find the air itself was deadly. On the evening of July 29, 1967, 4 men decided to enter Staunton Quarry Cave. Leading the group was 28-year-old Charles Villa, a seasoned quarryman with a confident streak. Alongside him were John Miller, Johnny Breer, and David Price, friends bound by routine and restless for something different. They weren't cavers, not even close. No oxygen tanks, no gas detectors, just flashlights, a rope, and a hunger for something different from the grind of quarry life. As they stepped into the darkness, the air felt thick, stagnant but manageable. They pressed on. Laughter bounced off the walls at first. It was a break from routine, an adventure. 70 feet in, everything changed. The air got heavy. Breathing became harder. Their skin dampened as the cave seemed to press in around them. David stopped, first hand on the wall, dizzy. Then Johnny swayed, gripping the stone for balance. There was a metallic tang in the air now, faint but unmistakable. Charles, up front, was struggling to breathe. He waved them forward, brushing off the discomfort. But then the panic hit, hard. One by one, the symptoms worsened. Lightheadedness, nausea, shallow gasps for air. They turned back. The flashlights jittered. The once bold group was now stumbling toward the entrance. Johnny and David surged ahead, instincts kicking in. Behind them, Charles dropped, legs folding beneath him, his flashlight clattering to the floor. John, just a teen, turned to help but collapsed too, his body giving out with a final desperate breath. Johnny didn't look back, neither did David. The only goal was to escape. The tunnel narrowed. Their lungs screamed. The entrance light flickered in the distance, and then they burst out into the open, collapsing, heaving, sucking down the life-saving oxygen. They had made it. Barely. Emergency services were called immediately. Among the first to respond was Melville Fitzgerald, a veteran of the Staunton rescue squad. He knew the risks: carbon monoxide, trapped from the dynamite blast days earlier. Still, Melville went in with just a flashlight and a rope. Inside, the cave was dead silent. Each breath was a battle. When he reached the chamber, Charles was still breathing. Barely. John was gone. Melville dropped to his knees, tried to lift Charles, but the air was poisoned. His vision narrowed, his chest burned. He staggered back, collapsing at the mouth of the cave. Industrial fans were rushed in to ventilate the space. Hours passed. Finally, the rescuers returned, but it was too late. Charles had died shortly after Melville's retreat. Autopsies confirmed carbon monoxide poisoning. The cave, lacking airflow, had become a trap, an invisible tomb. The cave was sealed permanently. For Johnny and David, the guilt never left. They escaped, but their friends had not. And in that silence beneath the quarry, the cave still remembers. The quarry had gone silent. But deep in a mountain far away, another cave waited. No poison, no traps. Just time. And the right man to step too far. On August 8th, 2019, some Bora stepped into the mouth of a cave beneath Cambodia's Chakra Mountain. He wasn't a thrill seeker, not a climber, not a pro. He was a guano harvester, a job most people wouldn't dream of. Every few weeks, Bora would descend alone into the dark, winding caves below the limestone cliffs looking for bat droppings used as fertilizer. Dangerous? Yes, but it paid just enough to keep his family going. He was small, wiry, and quiet, perfect for crawling into places other people couldn't even fit. And he'd done it many times before. That morning, he packed a flashlight, water, a few meals of rice, and a bundle of empty sacks. It was supposed to be a routine 3-day trip. Inside the cave, it was hot and silent. The ammonia smell of bat waste burned his nose. Good sign. He followed it deep into the twisting system, nearly 1,200 feet down, until he found a narrow vertical fissure packed with fresh guano. He leaned in with his flashlight to check the depth, and it slipped. The light bounced once, then dropped into the void, and everything went black. Panicked, Bora dropped flat and reached for it. Big mistake. His chest slid into the fissure. His arms were pinned, his torso wedged, his legs thrashed uselessly behind him. In a second, he was completely trapped. The more he struggled, the deeper he sank. He screamed. Nothing. No echo, no reply. The cave had him. Hours passed, then days. He had no food, no water, just crushing pressure. His body ached. His lungs struggled. He hallucinated light, voices, death. Back in his village, his family grew worried. Bora never missed a return window. On the third day, his brother gathered locals and started searching. They followed faint tracks, disturbed rocks, bent plants, into the cave system. Then, a whisper. Someone froze, listened. Help. They found him, barely conscious, wedged tight. Only his head and shoulders are visible. He'd been trapped for 5 days. Rescue teams arrived within hours. Over 200 people, firefighters, medics, villagers, rushed to the site. But the cave was too tight for heavy equipment. They couldn't use jackhammers, couldn't risk collapse. So they worked by hand. For 10 hours, they chiseled away at the stone, inch by inch. They slipped oxygen tubes and rehydration fluid through tiny cracks. Bora faded in and out, but he held on. And finally, he was free. Exhausted, bruised, gaunt, but alive. Bora never went back into a cave again. Reporters asked if he considered it a miracle. He shook his head, said no angels saved him, no fate, no destiny. If he'd had a knife, he said later, he would have ended it, but he didn't. But does every cave let you go? 3 years later, on the other side of the world, another man entered a cave. He had training, technology, and experience. Roaring River isn't just deep, it's deadly. Tight vertical drops, sudden silt-outs, zero visibility. Divers follow a thin guideline through the cave. Lose it, and you're done. Han was on a closed-circuit rebreather. High-tech, efficient. It recycles gas, perfect for long, deep dives. But it's also high risk. One small misstep with oxygen or gas mix, and it can turn fatal in seconds. He descended, stage bottles in place, gear dialed in. At 58 meters, Han crossed paths with a deeper diver. That diver later said everything seemed fine. No stress, no panic. 60 seconds later, that changed. At 11:25 a.m., Han slammed into Marty, his dive partner, out of nowhere. He was thrashing, bolting upward in a panic. At that depth, a rapid ascent means death. Marty grabbed him, struggling to control the situation as Han writhed and fought his rebreather loop. Then, a critical error. Han yanked out his mouthpiece without sealing it. Water flooded in. Marty reacted fast, purged the bailout regulator, shoved it into Han's mouth, but it was too late. Han started seizing violently. Oxygen toxicity. At 58 meters, even a slight spike in oxygen can short-circuit the brain. Muscles lock. Vision narrows. You lose control instantly. Han was caught mid-seizure, sinking as Marty tried desperately to hold on. They dropped to 62 meters. Silt exploded in every direction. Visibility gone. The guideline lost. Marty was out of time, nearly out of breath. He had no choice. He let go. Another diver tried pushing in. The silt was too thick. No visibility, no access. The rescue became a body recovery. At 4 p.m., Missouri's Highway Patrol dive team arrived. Hours later, they located Han, 61 meters down. His bailout was still in his mouth, bubbling gently. His tanks had gas. His rebreather loop was open. He hadn't run out of air. What went wrong? Experts believe Han was using a gas mix with too little helium, replacing it with nitrogen. At depth, nitrogen induces narcosis, confusion, poor judgment, and delayed reflexes. Worse, he'd been manually injecting oxygen. At 58 meters, it takes just a little too much to trigger a seizure. Marty had done everything right. He acted fast. The team above was ready. But cave diving doesn't always give second chances, and Roaring River Cave keeps its lessons carved in silence hundreds of feet below. In our last story, a father stepped into a cave to scout a family trip, which turned into a nightmare. On May 25th, 2003, the day began with sunshine, blue skies, and a sense of adventure. Chris Molyneux, 36, was ready to show his family a piece of the underground world he loved. A seasoned caver with trips to Washington's lava tubes under his belt, he'd mapped out a simple excursion to Rink Cave. His wife, Michelle, sat in the passenger seat of their family minivan. In the back, their 3 kids, 7, 4, and just 18 months, were bubbling with excitement. Chris had everything prepared. The GPS coordinates pulled from a caving forum, the cave map, his headlamp, spare lights, and batteries. What could go wrong? They parked near the coordinates, and a faint trail led them to a sinkhole, one of the cave's known entrances. It didn't exactly match the map, but it seemed close enough. Chris, confident and eager to confirm the path ahead, strapped on his gear and told Michelle he'd scout alone first. The narrow entry passage quickly chilled, and about 100 feet in, Chris hit a crawl space, just 18 inches high. It matched a section of the map near the west entrance. This would be a quick loop, he thought. He'd pop out at the main entrance where the iconic ice formation waited, then bring the family in. Chris pushed through. On the other side, a larger tunnel. He turned left, confident the main entrance was just ahead. But something was off. A rockfall blocked the path, not on the map. Strange. He turned back, but when he retraced his steps, he arrived at the same rockfall. Impossible! To test his sanity, Chris scratched an X in the dirt and walked in the other direction. 400 paces later, there it was. The same 10. He was trapped in a circular tunnel. Panic brewed. The crawl space had to be somewhere. Chris searched the outer wall, nothing. Then the inner. Still nothing. He tore pieces of his map and marked spots. No change. The loop just looped. Time passed. An hour, then 2, then 5. Michelle and the kids were stranded at the trailhead. Chris had the car keys and no way out. He circled again and again. Rocks blurred together. The tunnel twisted in his perception. Was this even a real place anymore or some nightmare? Finally, he broke. Falling to his knees, sobbing into the damp floor, he begged the darkness for mercy. Please, I need to get out. My family needs me. And then something. A flicker of will. A surge of purpose. He was a father. They were waiting. He started again. Near the collapsed entrance, he spotted it. A shadow. Different. He crouched. A tight opening, half hidden. The crawl space. 50 feet from where he'd started. He squeezed through. Familiar walls. The first passage. Then sunlight. Blinding, glorious sunlight. The forest was quiet. The car was gone. Michelle had hiked to the road with the kids, flagged down a ranger, and returned just as Chris escaped the cave that would be named Minotaur, a labyrinth that nearly claimed his life. If you made it this far, you've felt what it means to hit no way out. Subscribe, tap the bell, and drop the story that shook you most. Like, share, and stay sharp. We'll see you in the next descent.